South Carolina from the USS Yorktown for a live election special on the record, on the trail, the countdown to South Carolina. Meanwhile, the race for the GOP nomination is getting nastier by the minute. It might be hard to believe when you look at us here on this beautiful aircraft carrier in Mount Pleasant. But it's not just the cannon-slinging mud. GOP frontrunner Donald Trump has been in a fierce fight with, of all people, the Pope. Yes, the Pope yesterday suggesting Donald Trump is not a Christian. And tonight, that leading candidate, Donald Trump, is here to respond to the Pope right here on the record. We caught up with Donald Trump earlier today and sat down with him for an extended interview. Donald, nice to see you.
Thank you.
So excited about tomorrow?
It's so exciting. You know, I've never done anything like this, and it's probably the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I can tell you, waiting in New Hampshire for those votes to come in, even though people thought I might win and all, and then to see him come in even better than anticipated, it was one of the most exciting evenings for me.
All right. Well, you've had a lot going on in your life. There's been a response from the Vatican. The spokesperson says that the spat that you and the Pope had, or at least was in the media, has said it is in no way a personal attack on or an indication how to vote. That's what the Pope.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Look, with me, I think he's a terrific person, frankly. And I was a little bit surprised to hear it yesterday, you know, to be honest with you, with the Pope. But to me, it's illegal immigration. It's illegal immigration. People are coming across the border. There's tremendous crime happening. I turned out to be right on that, you know, with Kate and with Jamil and with so many people. But tremendous crime, and there's also drugs pouring across the border. And, you know, I just won New Hampshire, and I will tell you that in New Hampshire, the biggest single issue they have is heroin. They have a huge heroin problem up there. This gorgeous, gorgeous state with beautiful trees and beautiful meadows, and everything's beautiful. And the biggest problem they have is heroin, and it comes right across the border. And I said, I will stop it. So I don't think the Pope really understood in terms of the crime problem and the problems of illegal immigration. And the fact that he said that, I'm very honored by it.
Were you surprised, though, yesterday or whenever you heard to wake up or to find out that you and the Pope were embroiled in this global dispute?
Well, maybe surprised isn't quite strong enough. How about shocked?
I was shocked.
They said, the Pope just made a statement about you. I said, the Pope? What did I do? I said, was it good or bad? They said, you won't like it. But essentially it was, you know, I think the Mexican government probably said that a man named Trump wants to close up the border. And, you know, I'm not closing it. People are going to come in, but they have to come in legally. But we're going to build the wall, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be very easy to do, and it's very inexpensive to do, by the way, if you know how to do like I do, you know, build. But we're going to have great borders. We're going to have borders. You know, without borders, we don't have a country. And that border is just like a piece of Swiss cheese. People just pour over it.
BuzzFeed is reporting that they have an audio tape of you back from September 2002 in which you were asked about the Iraq War, and which you said that whether you're for it or not, and you said, I guess so, something to that effect.
Very weak, very timid. By the way, I heard the tape, and that was long before the war started. And it was a very, like, I guess so. That was Howard's a friend of mine. That was the first time that I was ever asked about it. It was the first time. And I sort of said, I guess so. And then 7, 8, 9 months later, I guess, the war started. By that time, I had already gone that I was absolutely opposed to it. I just thought it would destabilize the Middle East. I was right. I thought that if you take out Iraq, Iran will take over the Middle East. That's exactly what's happening. I mean, I've called it. And they're taking over the oil. You know, Iraq has the second largest oil reserves in the world, and Iran is getting that for nothing. It's ridiculous. So I was always opposed to it. And 2003, you see that I was opposed to it, because that's when articles started coming out. Remember also, I wasn't a politician. Nobody really cared what I thought about the war. Nobody would really ask me. I guess Howard might have asked me at that early point, but that was long before the war started. By the time I had a chance to think about it, I was against. And
why?
Because I always felt it was a destabilization of the Middle East. You know, I'm not, a lot of people say temperament. I think I have the best temperament. On all the stage, I'm the only one that said, don't go into the war. And by the way, even if some of the pundits said, even if he said it in 2003, where it's actually recorded in 2003, that was still being against the war. That was a long time ago. That was before anybody was. I mean, for the most part, people absolutely wanted to go into the war. Number one, there were no weapons of mass destruction. But this was one of the great bad decisions of all time. It was perhaps, I mean, you could put it as the worst decision ever made in the history of our country. What we have done is $2 trillion, many more $1 trillion because of it, but $2 trillion, we haven't been able to fix up our own country. We lost thousands of lives, thousands of young, great people, thousands. And what else did we lose? We have wounded warriors all over the place. And you know where we are right now? Lower. Had Saddam Hussein lived, he used to kill terrorists, all right? Had our presidents gone to the beach and relaxed and gone swimming, we would have been better off. We're lower now than we were when we started the war in Iraq. So it was one of the really horrible decisions. And all of the problems that we have now stem from going into Iraq.
I spoke to Prime Minister Tony Blair, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, a number of years ago, and he said that he agreed with President Bush on that decision because everybody thought that there were weapons of mass destruction, that was the intelligence they were getting.
They made a mistake.
They made a mistake, and I mean, what should they have done differently?
Well, and by the way, Tony Blair now thinks it was a great error. I mean, I've seen.
No, I understand.
You know, he thinks it was a great error, and Jeb Bush, who was unable to answer the question. You know, Jeb Bush was absolutely unable when he announced that he was running for president. They asked him, was it good or bad? He started by saying it was good, then bad. Took him 5 days to finally get it out. You know, he went to his pollster and he finally got it right. But he ended up saying that it was a mistake, and it was a tremendous mistake, a traumatic mistake. The infrastructure of our country is absolutely dying. Our roads, our highways, our bridges, our tunnels, our airports are a mess. You look at our airports. I go to other countries. You see airports, and you do too. You see airports like there's nothing like it in the world. I mean, some of the great structures in the world are airports. And we fly into LaGuardia, where you have the potholes all over the place. I mean, we're like a third world country, right in the middle of New York City. So we made a terrible mistake. All of those trillions could have been spent on our country. We would have been much better off.
So how do you unravel that now? Because we are where we are. We're still there,
right.
And we're still spending money. The world is very destabilized. So how do you unravel that as president?
Well, and if you remember, President Bush said, you know, on the aircraft carrier, essentially, it's over, the war is won. Okay, that was a long time ago, and it turned out to be just the opposite. It got much worse, and now it's worse than ever. You have to take out ISIS. You have to understand, I'm the one that said don't do it, but now you're in. And Obama did a horrible job of getting out also. In all fairness, Obama got a horrible job. He gave a date, he moved everybody out, he did it too fast, a lot of things he did wrong. And we picked the wrong people to run Iraq. Iraq was run by a man who absolutely, he created ISIS because he wouldn't let everybody be inclusive, and he created ISIS. Okay, you have to take ISIS out. You have to take them out, and you have to take them out without question. And it has to be done in a very, very quick and surgical manner. But ISIS has to go.
But it's metastasized now all over the world.
I
mean, you've got North Africa with those terrorist groups that have declared allegiance to Al-Qaeda or to ISIS. I mean, it is
this
all over the world.
This all happened because of the war. I mean, a large part of it because of the decision to go into Iraq. You know, Saddam Hussein, bad guy, right? He was a bad guy. But he did one thing well. He killed terrorists. There was nothing happening in Iraq. The terrorists were killed. He was very good at killing terrorists. And once he was gone, now Harvard University is Iraq for terrorists. In other words, you want to be a terrorist, it's the Harvard. You go to Iraq. And he used to kill the terrorists. You didn't have terrorists in Iraq. That's the one place they wouldn't go. They wouldn't go other places also where they took a tough stance. But now you have to do something about ISIS because they're chopping off heads. They want very powerful weapons. They're looking for very powerful weapons, and we have no choice. You know, if this was 100 years ago, I'd say forget it. If it was 50 years ago, I'd say forget it. But we're living in an age of very powerful weapons. You now have to do something very, very strong against ISIS. You can't let this happen.
Then what do you do about Kim Jong-un and North Korea? President Obama has just signed increased sanctions, but they've had a recent nuclear underground test, and they've shot off a rocket or a satellite in the space. What would you do about Kim Jong-un?
Well, we lost a great opportunity because when the worst deal that I think I've ever seen negotiated, the deal with Iran where they got $150 billion, when that deal was made, they are the #1 partner of North Korea. So we could have had something in that deal that they have to solve or help solve that problem, #1. Now they have a very wealthy partner. They had a poor partner. Now they have a very, because Iran has become a very wealthy partner. But they are the #1 partner of North Korea. We did nothing. We never even put it as part of our negotiation, and it should have been. Perhaps even more importantly, China. Without China, North Korea doesn't exist because everything comes through China. China says they don't have that much to do. They have 100% to do. They're taunting us, okay? They're just playing with us.
Well, China doesn't want Kim Jong-un to fail, I don't think, or to fall apart, because they fear that the that the people from North Korea are going to flee into China. They don't want all those refugees.
But you're right. But China has tremendous power over him. I mean, in terms of food, in terms of everything, in terms of just getting there, China is the key.
But Iran's now got money and is helping them.
Oh, now Iran is helping them. We could have starved them out, but Iran's got so much money, we gave them $150 billion. And again, the dumbest deal I think I've ever seen negotiated, not between countries, the dumbest deal, period. It was the most incompetent deal. We should have had our prisoners back years ago. They should have come back. You shouldn't have started the negotiations. You should have ratcheted up the sanctions against Iran. You would have had the prisoners back 4 years ago. Okay. What we should do is we should go to China. Just so you understand, China needs us very badly because they're taking all of our money. They're taking all of our jobs. It's the greatest single theft in the history of the world, what China's done to the United States. We have tremendous power over China, but Obama doesn't understand that, and he doesn't know that. We have to get China to solve that problem. The other thing, we spend a fortune protecting South Korea and many other nations. They are an economic behemoth. We have to make sure that South Korea reimburses us for our real costs. You know, we have 28,000 soldiers on the line, 28,000 soldiers between North and South Korea. I wouldn't want to be one of those soldiers, I'll tell you right now. But we have 28,000 soldiers there. We have to make sure that South Korea, where I order thousands of television sets a year, I mean, they're all coming out of South Korea. It's LG and Samsung. We have to make sure that that country, South Korea, where I have very good friends. I have buildings in South Korea. I have actual buildings in South Korea. And I say that despite this. They have to reimburse us. We are a nation that's in debt. We have $19 trillion in debt. With the deal that was just made, the omnibus budget deal, which is one of the terrible deals, it's going to be $21 trillion in debt. They have to reimburse us for our costs.
All right. Something that drives me absolutely nuts is when the Justice Department signs a big deal with a big bank, like take Morgan Stanley, which according to their settlement agreement they had just recently, that there were misrepresentations. I call them lies. I call it fraud, which contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. But there are no indictments. It's just a civil settlement, and it doesn't seem like anybody ever has responsibility for these giant things that happen to our economy like that, where there are material misrepresentations. Would your Justice Department have criminal investigations?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, there were things that were done that were very illegal. There were things that were done that were very bad. They have good
Do you have any problem with the fact that it was strictly a civil settlement?
I don't have a huge problem with it because
Why?
I understand. But
do you know who pays for this? It's not the culprits. It's the shareholders, and those are going to have to, the shareholders pay for it.
Yeah. Look, if somebody did fraudulent, absolutely. If somebody made bad business decisions, absolutely not. You know, you can't. The problem
bad business decisions with misrepresentation?
No, that's okay. No good. But here's the thing. We have a banking system now that's run by the regulators. I mean, you have these bankers that you know and I know, and they're making $30, $40, $50 million a year. They have no power in the bank. The whole banking system is run by regulators. They're the real power. Government regulators have
what would you do
real
about
power. We have to open our banking system. You know, we had no growth last quarter. You saw that. Practically zero. It's unheard of. If China goes down to 7%, it's like a major catastrophe. We had zero growth, practically zero growth. We could have zero growth this next quarter. Our country is stagnant. We have nothing going. You know, we get larger, we have nothing. Our country is doing very badly. We have bad jobs, very bad jobs. The job report is a phony report. It's made to make, politicians look good. Our real number is probably 25 to 30% unemployment. You understand what I'm saying. You look for a job, you can't get the job, you go on, statistically it's considered, you quit looking. Statistically you're not looking for a job. We have no growth. You have to let the banks go out and loan money. I have friends, they can't borrow money. They're good people, good developers, good business people. They can't borrow money from the banks.
CBS Scott Pelley asked Secretary Clinton, said whether she has ever lied to anyone, and her response was, well, you're asking me to say, have I ever? I don't believe I ever have, ever will. I'm going to do the best I can level with the American people. So the same question to you. Have you ever lied to the American people?
I don't lie. I mean, I don't lie. In fact, if anything, I'm so truthful that it gets me in trouble. Okay? They say I'm too truthful. And no, I don't lie. I don't lie. And, I'm self-funding my campaign. I tell the truth.
How much have you spent so far?
Probably $25 million. It's a lot of money. My money, it's my money. It's not money from an electric company. It's not money from a lumber company. It's not money from Johnson & Johnson and pharmaceutical companies. Like Jeb Bush gets all this money from these pharmaceutical companies.
Why do you talk about Jeb? He's not even like, he's not even your competition.
No, I'll tell you why. Because he spent $20 million on negative ads on me. Nobody else has. He spent $20 million on negative ads. So I hit him whenever I get the chance.
How about Senator Rubio?
Well, you know, we've had a pretty cordial relationship, actually, relatively speaking. It'll be interesting to see how he does. It's going to be a very interesting Saturday.
And Senator Cruz?
Well, he lies. I mean, he's really lies. And Rubio actually called him out. I was so happy that Rubio said that, because I've never heard a politician actually say, "You're a liar." And Rubio, during the debate, said, "You're a liar," meaning to Cruz. But he did. What he did to Carson, Dr. Carson, was a terrible thing. He said that he had left the race and, you know, vote for him. And he knew about it. Then he calls up 20 minutes after the election's over and he says, "I'm sorry, big deal." They should frankly overturn that decision. They should overturn that election. But what he did to Carson was terrible. The voter violation fraud paper was, in my opinion, was a fraud. And he should have never been allowed. I've never seen anything like that. And he lies. I mean, he lies about my stuff. He lies about records. And he lied about Rubio.
If you are the nominee, what's your criteria for a vice president?
Somebody that can be a great president. You know, it's really a simple criteria.
Got any names?
I do. I have names in mind, but I didn't want to think about it.
Someone in politics, or would you go out of politics?
I would go in politics because I'm out of politics. Now, I've been a politician all my life in the sense that I deal with politicians all my life, but I am, you know, look, I would rather get somebody that could really do a job within politics. We don't need two of me. We need one of me, and we need a politician, and we have to get the right guy. I can't believe that I'm sort of a politician now, but I guess one day it was going to happen. What surprised you about the media covering your campaign? Well, I think the media is very dishonest. The political, you know, the financial media is different because you have a job and it's sort of like you make a lot of money and they report you made X dollars and, you know, it's a little bit different. I find the political media to be very dishonest, like 75% of them. I think it's a very, very dishonest group of people. The amazing thing is the public understands it. And if they didn't, I wouldn't have the kind of poll numbers I have. I mean, the public gets it. I talk about it. But I find the political media to be unbelievably dishonest. What do we get wrong about you the most? What do you think? How do you think you're most misunderstood? About what? I think I'm a really nice person, actually. I mean, I'm a person that loves people. I love the people in my audience. I love the people that are supporting me. And every poll says Trump has the strongest support, meaning the people that are with Trump they're just with Trump. Whereas you look at some, it's like they're at 10%, they could change 90%. With me, it's up into the 90s. They don't ever want to change. I love my people. Donald, thank you for talking to me. Thank you very much.